Today's daf is daf Nun Tes Amid Aleph, and this is the basis for the famous expression. I'm sure you'll recognize it. The Gemara says here, Omar Rabba, Bereya the Rabba, the 4 lines from the top of the page. Rabba, the son of Rabba, said, V'itema, other says, Abhilul Bereya the Rabbalis. Sorry, we said that yesterday. But now that we mentioned him, so Amar Rabba, which are 2 lines below. Amar Rabba Bereya Rabba, V'itema, other said, Abhilul Bereya the Rabbalis. Now that we mentioned that, we'll continue with something else. Mimois Moshe, the Ad Rebbe, between from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu until Rebbe, Loi Matzinu Torah Gedula b'Makom Echad. We don't find Torah and Gedula in one place. And what's interesting is what Rashi says here about Gedula is. Rashi says here that Gedula is that he said that the Torah and the Gedula of the Eden he named in one place. Meaning, says Rashi, that there's no one greater in Torah. Uba Oisher. Rashi learns Gedula literally means wealth. Because it does say we had more Shabbos that you have to make sure that the leader should be wealthy, and so this they incorporated both qualities, the best Neruchnis and the best Negashmis, and they weren't mutually exclusive. That's what makes them so godel that they able to be able to take and make a synthesis between Gash and Ruchnis. Loi, the Gemara says, Loi, there wasn't. How have Yeshua about Yeshua? Now, how do you know Yeshua was rich? So the fact that we ask this Yeshua tells us that Lav Dafka means it was wealth. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu was rich from exactly from the sapphires there. But how do you know Yeshua was rich? Well, all these other questions we're going to ask. So as a result of that, it seems then we're going more like Gedula means leadership, not combining Torah and authority in the same, invested in the same person, not Lav Dafka wealth. Anyway, Yeshua, so we answer Havli Yazar. Yeshua wasn't alone. There was a Lazar also who was a Kohen Gadol. Again, who said he was rich? He was a leader. And Havi Loza, but Loza outlasted Yeshua. Havi Pinchas. He had Pinchas while he lived around, while he was there. And here Rashi says, Havi Pinchas. Rashi says, after Loza Toyri Gedula, Shahaya Kohen Gadol. So now we switch. That's what happened. A minute ago, Rashi said it means Oisha, now he said it means Kohen Gadol. Unless we make an assumption that they took it seriously when it says that the highest, that the Kohen Gadol, you should make sure he's also wealthy. They made him wealthiest person at that time, but he also was Torah, because like last week's Pasha, he was the only one who remembered the halacha, what to do with Zimri. Have Pinchas, have his Cain outlasted him. Have his Shaul, there was Shaul, have his Shmuel, and we know Shaul was a Gadol b'Torah as well. Only suddenly we had more even the show was that he didn't teach others, not like David who taught others. But there was Shmuel in his lifetime. Shmuel passed away before Shaul. We're talking about the full lifetime of that person. Since he reached Gedula, from the moment he reached Gedula, Pinchas did not become a Kohen Gadol until Loza passed away. So therefore they didn't overlap. So we have to say this Canaan. But Shmuel and Shaul, while Shaul was king, Shmuel was also there. And so it wasn't all the years of Shaul. Well, what about David? That's what he meant. That's what Abba says. That this person was the only person. Torah Gedula Makom Echad. Torah Rashi says the greatest. The greatest. You couldn't be one greatest. The greatest and the greatest. Because the position Kohen Gadol will be one. David, Havi Ida Hayidi. There's Ida Hayidi who is also a great scholar, and it says that he's a teacher all the Rabbanim at that time. Even though he passed away, all the years they overlap. Havi Shloimeh, Havi Shimon Begeder, his Rebbe Shimon Begeder, who Shloimeh himself killed. David told Shloimeh to kill Shimon Begeder, and he didn't want it. So the way he did it was he told him, "You can never leave Yerushalayim." After 3 years, he couldn't hold himself back. He went out. That's what he got. When the slaves ran away. But Shloimeh killed him, so he was on his own. Why did one have to repeat it again and again? Or have a Chizkiah, have a Shevna. There was Shevna, who was a Gadol b'Torah, that he used to have 130,000 students, versus Chizkiah only had 110,000 students. But Shevna himself was a Russian, so it's a bit hard to understand why we put him there. Ha'iktu, he was killed. Kulishnek, he was killed by the Goyim. But Ha'iktu Sachet killed him during all the years. Well, have a Ezra, have the Nechemia b'Chachavia. Nechemia was the leader as well. I'm going to add from the times of Rebbe to Rav Ashi, we don't find. What about Huna Bar Nosson who was trading Dula Mokum Echad? The Gemara Shiny Huna Bar Nosson, the make of a kai. He felt subordinate to Rav Ashi. So therefore, it wasn't he. Even though he could have been said today became a euphemism we use for anybody that that is a Talmud Chacham and so on, and Gedula, we say this is where it comes from. Studying about a Mishnah, we're talking about takadas. That's what this last pedic and this pedic talking about. Cheresh, somebody who's deaf and dumb, rein maze venirmas. That he can make like sign language, using his hand, using his head to nod, whatever it is, to tell you what he wants. And therefore, we'll see that he can even give a get because his kedushin in the first place was done through them. So therefore, he can unravel what he did the same way. Then Seder goes a step further. He says, "Kaifit v'nikvis." Not only with sign language and nodding head, even moving the lips. Moving the lips is considered a weaker form of expression, and even that's good enough according to Ben Seder. But when by metalton, whether it applies together, we'll see in a minute. Hapuutis, and the same token, puutis, young little kids. Mekcha mekach or memker meker. We say that their sales and the purchases are good. Metal tells them they also call us oil, as we'll see anymore. They have to live. Saying the machlek is by metal. I will be Gittin Dibri Hakel b'remiza. By Gittin, everyone holds a miza is good enough. Why everyone good enough? Because since that's how they got married, why can't they undo the marriage the same way they got married? Pshita b'metalkin, non-metalkin. Nay, Ma would have thought. I would have thought also, but Gittin for sure is good enough. Why? What do you call it? Sorry, I made a mistake. By this is I said the second version. The first version of Nachman is only by metalkin does it work. But by Gittin, everyone holds that the moving your lips is not good enough. You actually have to make a remnants. Then you want to is obvious. And Mishnah said the word metalton. So what do you have to tell me? Then no, we would have thought Gittin is a given because that's how you got married in the first place. If you got married that way, why can't you divorce that way? Just moving your lips. No. Ikidam means other way around. That what? Have the same argument in both. Banan metalton, aim say av metalton, also metalton. Gittin for sure, even metalton. Because you're buying it for the first time and selling it. Now, what do you mean selling it? That's how you got it. If you're selling something, obviously you bought it. So what's the difference in Gittin and selling? No, because what happened? You got it through a Yerusha. If you got it through a Yerusha, you got it because the Torah says it's yours, and now you want to sell it. So therefore, that's the chiddush that you can sell just even big fitzer, opening your mouth, closing your mouth. What age are we talking about? 6-7-year-old already is capable of making these decisions. Now, 7 or 8 years old. If a masnit and a brais going to that's a 9-10 years old. There's no actual absolute rule. You have to look at each kid and exactly. And based on their merits. The time of mind, what's the reason why they enable them? They need to live. Big machlek is that of high going and the Ramban. Okay, now that we know they need to live, so they sustain themselves, we're allowed to sell, allowed to buy. Are they only permitted to sell and buy what they need to live, which is a high going opinion? Or once we said that they can sell, they can buy, then we don't put no limits and no caps on it. But that was the basis for this takana. But then when we say loy plug. And what big machlek is how the Rashba lives. You heard the Ramban of High because he quotes them both in different places. The what do you call it? We'll see the Ramban's line in a minute. And because we say he needs to sustain himself, if he has an apatrufus, like an executive to the state, an administrator who takes care of all his affairs, then he cannot sell or buy because there's no longer kedei chayav. Now we mentioned about Yakin and something else he said as well. Vayemer says a pasuk. Vayemer he said, "Asher al hamilchacha." Said to the person in charge of the milchacha. Like in Yehu it says, "Bring out close to all those people who worship the Baal." My milchacha, the one who's overseeing the milchacha. One who oversees linen, the silk things that are very, very that are very fine. and they just crumple in your hands. Stretch in your hands. This person called Banim Ben Nunim was a very rich person. Rebbe to Rebbe a present. He sent him Sivni, Chaimim, Salsal, Mamala, 4 different types of fabric. Sivni v'chaisim, Amguza Palga. When you take it and bunch it up in your hand, even though it's a full dress, you could bunch up your hand and be the size of a nut and a half, because it's so fine, like silk. I'm good enough. That's like a gold nut. It's even smaller. That you just crumble up in your hand. My malmula was the word malmula. That's what it is. Something that you can stretch and it's very, very fine. Anyway, getting back to talking about it, to Usan and Kama, if a child makes a mistake, when do we say that he gets cancelled? The same gadol. Up to 6, fine. If it's a 6, we say return the money. If it's over 6, the whole mekach is bottled. What about a gift? Can a child give a gift? He can't give a gift, because what kedei chayiv is there in that? But we lived before already. When do you give gifts? Only people do you favors. So this is the child's benefit to give this type of gift. This argument between Rav Yemar and Marbar Rashi. Marbar Rashi is good, but they told Pastor Mordechai, a friend of Marbar Rashi, that by mistake to change the names around. Only Zilu. And Rav Mordechai then said, tell Marbar Rashi, because they told him the wrong information. You don't remember. The Bar Mar, so teacher. Don't you remember what happened when Rav Ashi was standing with Chad Are Kara Are, 1 foot on the ground, the Chad Kari Adai, 1 foot on the step. Just like nonchalantly, we were having this conversation, and we asked her, "What's the name of Matana?" How can you say what you said? It didn't matter. The Marbar Rashi did say what his father said. They just mixed up the names. Then he said, "Achaz matnas chivra, v'achaz matnas body." Once we lay down the rules, give a gift. It doesn't matter whether it's a matnas chivra, doesn't matter whether it's a matnas body. Achaz matana meruba, v'achaz matana wet. Doesn't matter a large matana or a small matana within the world of matana. So here's the Ramban Zeraya. Once you put the rule into place, it makes no difference in how much. The high going and those supporters say no right because here we're talking about matana. The whole purpose of matana is to curry someone's favor, and therefore, how do you know? It doesn't matter how large or small the matana is, currying somebody's favor. The larger matana, the more favor you're currying on it. So that's why there's no cap. But it's all part of kedei chayim. But by selling, you need $100 to live on. What right you have to sell a $500 item? That's the machlekes.
Is this the basis of why you can't do nothing else after with a child like sukkahs with the lulav?
The reason
you
can he's kind of mad trader and he cannot be mentioned. Especially because the Chachamim, even the Chachamim say he can sell only with the Rabbanah, but mad trader, it's through the kids. Eilu Devarim Amru Mipnei Dakashom, some more things for Dakashom. We should collect a whole bunch of things. For peace, for the sake of peace. Number 1, Koyin Koyre Rishon. The Achar of Levi Yisrael, with Dakashom. We don't want machlekes in the shul who gets the first lead, second lead. It's easy. Koyin Levi Yisrael. Ma'arvin, the big machlekes is we only have Koyin in the shul. What should you do? Should you do every other another Koyin, or do you get one Koyin, you get all 7 others? And to get one coin, nobody can run around saying, "Oh, that's later. Oh, he's pogum." That's why I have to call it again. But it's the same coin. It can't be. I think it's called again. When you give an aid of chatzedus, you put it in one of the houses. Put it in the same house you've been doing it for years. For the sake of peace, it was more fun. We have this river, and people usually big pits on the side, and they fill them up. So in case there's a drought, they have some spare water there. Who should get first? Those who are on top, where the water's coming in from the closest to the river. They first fill up their boy. They stymie the flow of the river, and they wait till the boy fills up, and then they unblock it and let the water flow down further. Dakashon, whoever's on top gets first. Mitzudas Chai is the first thing with a net. They're trapping animals and fish, catching fish. We're not talking about a net that has a concave, because it's my net. If a fish gets trapped inside the net, it's like flat. It's like flat, and what's surrounding it inside there, there's an animal. So you wouldn't really kind it in the public space. You wouldn't kind it, but with Daka Shalom, you put it, leave it there. Otherwise, there'll be all kinds of fights. It's Gezel Gomer. What's the difference? Daka Shalom with the Rabban and Gezel Gomer. If somebody will pose the fighters, I took it. If it's Daka Shalom, he doesn't have to return it. But if it's because a Gezel Gomer, the Rabban says, you stole it, he doesn't have to then he has to bring it back. And now we're talking about this machlekes of whether it's just Dr. Shalom or whether it's Gezel with Rabbanon, if you have a few more. But again, between Rabbi Yossi and Tanakama, see as Cheresh going to find something. They were given something that's called Das Cheresh Makler their kind. Whatever they found something, they took it themselves. Yesh behevshim Gezel with the Dr. Shalom. With Rabbanon, peace, for the sake of peace. And Rabbi Yossi says Gezel Gomer. Case number 3. Oni hamenaked bereisha zayis. The poor man is standing at the top of an olive tree, and he's banging down so the olive should fall to the ground. He can't be in the ground at the same time as the top of the tree. But when it falls on the ground, is he koine? How is he koine? He's not. But so other people technically can go, we'll take all the olives away. He's standing at the top of the tree, trying to shake down the olives, and somebody comes and takes them all away. So he says, Oni hamenaked bereisha zayis. If a poor man is standing at the top of the olive tree, ma shetachtav gezel b'nei dagashol. What's underneath it, you shouldn't take because that's Dagashol. Rabbi Yossi says Gezel Gomer. The Rabbanan stepped in and said it's Gezel Gomer.
The trees are public.
Yeah, it's definitely not your space, whether it's in a common Simta or whether it's in Shirabi, but definitely how you claim it. This is all anyone. Yeah. Ein memachin biyad ani erucham. We do not prevent goyim for maleket shifasei. They Dagashol. Again, here comes Dagashol. We have the concept of Eva, Dagashol.
So this isn't even Gezel to that bottom. Would he be higher above a Kamisha for that, or that's only the
No, it's only right. But you don't cross them on that, but you have to return it. That's the bottom line. Says the Gemara, let's talk about the first thing, Kohen Levi Yisrael. But not immediately, how did they give Aliyah to Kohen first? Amar will be different structures. The master says, Omar, says the Posik, Ayichta Moshe, he wrote the Torah, Vayitnem ala Kohenim, and he gave them to the Kohenim, B'nai Levi. What are the Kohenim, B'nai Levi? Ultimately, the Kohen B'nai Levi, that they're part of the tribe of Levi. Tell you when it comes to Cheshuvim, first comes the Kohen, then the Levi, and Yisrael, they're relegated to last. From the following passage, it's all the same idea. The Nikshu HaKohen B'nai Levi, Hashem chose them. Otu Anan. So the first passage is Stam, Kohen B'nai Levi. The second one talks about Hashem chose them. He chose them, so you see that he chose the Kohen should be first, then Levi. Otu Anan Lo Yidin Kohen B'nai Levi. No, don't we know that? The Kohen B'nai Levi, first the Kohen, then the Levi. Ravashi says from the following passage. It says, B'nai Amram Hu Shalom Amram, Aaron and Moshe, and Hashem took Aaron and he made him sacred, and his children to serve him. Again, this is a passage which stresses when it comes to serve Hashem, Kohanim come first. Abba says the following passage, which is brought on the halacha. The Kiddush Toy l'chodova shebegdusha. You have to sanctify him every matter of kedusha. The kohen comes first, and it's not Tana Adrei Rabbi Shmuel. The Kiddush Toy l'chodova shebegdusha l'toich ishu. Whatever it is, he should be the first one. Whether it's learning Torah, whether it's sitting even on the dais, or whether he should be the first speaker, the kohen should always be first. And the lead, they should make the first bracha by him. He's a bench, lead the benching, or the first bracha to lead. And the little mana yafa berishin. If you're going to divide the food amongst everybody, first you divide it in equal portions, and then the kohen can take first. Taisha says no. Somebody's talking about also. They're talking about when it comes to giving tzedakah, the kohen should be first. But he says when it comes to matters of shutfus or other things like that, there's no difference. If you're telling me that this is all this takana of Darkei Shalom. If they it says a positive Kiddush Torah. It's mandatory to be makdash them. So what do you tell me to Darkei Shalom? I'm trying to give a shot, like a Shimon, give a time of the crowd. Why did the Torah say this to Darkei Shalom? Which Rabbi says to his Rebbe, then why single out this particular mitzvah? Every mitzvah Torah. Siva says a pasuk. The whole Siva says Shalom. The Torah is a peaceful book, and everything the Torah tells us is for the sake of Shalom. Elo Abaya. Abaya said, what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? You have to do Kiddush, you have to make a Kohen Kodesh. So if it's Mahatayda, what does the Mishnah say? Darkei Shalom. So he adds, the Mishnah is adding one thing. What's the Mishnah adding? What happened? Look at the time we learned, Shnayi Mamtinim Zelazebekaida, two people eating together, sharing one platter, and one of them goes to the bathroom, the other one should not continue eating, because the first person is getting go upset and eating more than him. Shloisha, without three people, and one person walks out, the other two don't have to wait for him. Ein Mamtin, don't have to wait. Haboitzeya, the one who, for example, is the one who's leading the bracha hamoitzi and he distributes the challah. Who here when it comes to taking the food, he should be first. But if the boitzeya wants to cover his rebbe, the bishop goes better that they should take for the food first. He has permission. Interesting, it doesn't say that by a kohen. Only here. But Mar Allah and Mar said on this. When do we say that you can, be moichel only when it comes to a suda? The base aknes is loy. When it comes to aliyas and shul, no, you can't be a kohen. I know, let the lady go first. So we ask the kohen to walk out of shul. We don't say, okay, stay and just be moichel. We can't do that. Why? Because then we have big fights. Who should get the first aliyah? Everyone says, I'm the biggest honor of the shul. I should get the first aliyah. The ashul and they'll come to argue. Amar Amasna says Amasna. When did we say that the kohen cannot be moichel shul because it will cause all kinds of arguments? Like Amar and El b'Shabbos Yom Tovim. Why the shchichir rabin? Because people everyone keep the shul on Shabbos, so it'd be big fights. Aval b'Sheis Mondays and Thursdays loy. Mondays and Thursdays is kam minion, so therefore you don't have to worry about it. Says it's not so. What Avuna Kodi b'Koini b'Shal Yom Avuna was a Yisrael. They called them up as kohen on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Should we see that even Shabbos and Yom Tov, the kohen can be moichel? And the Gemara doesn't say that the kohen walked out of the shul. Shine the Avuna for Rabbi Mirabasi kan ichshivi that Yisrael make of a kaifalei. Gemara could have said that maybe, but the Gemara is saying a better answer. Avuna was such a godly Yisrael that there's nobody like him that even Rabbi Mirabasi, his great illustrious Amorim who were kohenim, they would step aside for Avuna. So if you have someone who's so unique, such a big godel, he's allowed to have the first aliyah. But everybody else, the kohen cannot be Michael. Interesting traces are, first of all, that Mondays and Thursdays, you know, if there was common minion, there's traces, that's only talking about in those days because during the week they were very busy. But today, everyone comes to shul on Mondays and Thursdays. Interesting, we had in Gemara Megillah that Monday, why we bring Megillah forward to Monday and Thursday, because everybody's come to shul. Even the villages would come to town to hear Kriyas HaTorah. And you're telling me that the people in town didn't bother going to shul. So I'm not sure exactly what Taisa means when Monday and Thursday people didn't go to shul. It's right here, it says, they didn't come to shul. I don't know.
Maybe they didn't care to get the aliyah.
Sorry?
Maybe they were busy to go to work. They didn't care to get the aliyah.
That could be. They're too busy to fight. Maybe. The next page says, when the Gemara says that the kohen can be moichel for a great rabbi, it's only someone equal to Rav Huna who is the greatest rabbi. But if you're the greatest rabbi in your local, in your shul, then kohenim are not moichel. It's only someone equal to Rav Huna. But Rab Ami Ravasi were stepped aside. They were greater rabbi for Rav Huna. That's the kind of rabbi we're talking about there. So you want further? The rule is ain't sham kohen. When there's no kohen in the shul, there's levim yisraelim. You get asked this all the time. Nispar de chavila, famous expression. The whole thing unravels. Big machlekes. Exactly what do you mean holding unravels? One opinion says there's no kohen anymore. Therefore, Rashi's first opinion is Levi gets no aliyah at all because he cannot be called up second, and because he struggles for him, and he shouldn't be called up first. People might think he's a kohen, so therefore in his part of Chavila, Rashi says that Ibn Halevi is kvoided. He loses his covered. The ain't no kohen cloud. Rashi says he does not get an aliyah. That's it. To make up for all the aliyahs that you get during the week, you take it away from all these Israelis. However, others say Rashi says there's no longer any order. You can give a Levi any aliyah you want. Even Shlishi Levi Chamisha. When does a Levi get sheni? When does a kohen get rishon? If there's no kohen, then you give Levi Shlishi Levi. And the third opinion is you can give the Levi rishon. Like we said, you bring the Levi can get rishon, and then you go back to Israel. That's, three opinions here. The Amr Abaye.
Rashi tells you he learned that from his rabbis, but then he says, well, one of their Talmidim happens to be a Levi. Yitzchak Halevi, he's a different place.
That's true. What Rabbi said, Naktina, ain't from Levi. What happens if there's a coin with no Levi? Coin a coin. You call the coin a second aliyah. But ain't not so. Rabbi Yechon coin, achar coin you should never call a second coin up because Pagam tradition people rightly accuse think, why do you call a coin sheni? Probably the first coin is not a coin. Now, the obvious question is, maybe they'll think that the second guy is not a coin. Why is he getting the Levi's aliyah? More or less at the minute. So you don't call a coin after a coin because we're worried about Pagam that you should say it's not a coin. Or Levi achar Levi you shouldn't call two Levim one after another. Sheni and Shlishi. We should Pagam Shnei. People think that the first one is not really a Levi, that's why you call it another Levi, or because the second one is not a Levi, it's Yisrael, that's why I got Shlishi. As the Gemara keep coming in, we're talking about Ba'oisei Kohen. When Abaye said that if there's no Levi in town, you call a Kohen, means the same Kohen who got the Rishon gets Sheni. And he makes a what do you call it? That since he makes a bracha before and after, so therefore we know that he is definitely a kosher Kohen, because a minute ago he got the other Aliyah. And now he's getting this aliyah over here. Yeah. And Teja says here that in the olden days, when you only had a bracha in the beginning, a bracha then, how did you show there was two aliyahs? Same person still standing there. So you have to sit down in the seat and come back and stand up again. That's how you if you didn't make a bracha, you demonstrate with two different aliyahs. And yeah, so the Gemara, I don't understand. You're worried. Either the thing the first guy wasn't a proper Levi, or the thing the second guy not a proper Levi. No, is the Amri Chaben I love Levi. Amri Chaben I love Kohen. Why by Kohen you say the same thing? You just said by Kohen. The problem is they'll think the first one is not a Kohen. Why do you think the second one's not a Kohen? It could be either one. When that's a good, we know the second guy was called up. His father was definitely a Kohen. So you're contrasting that to Levi. So Levi, the same thing. The second Levi is called up, Levi, and yet you say maybe he's not a kosher Levi. What's going on here? The boss is the mother. We're saying what maybe the mother was the problem, not the father. So what helped us the father, the big Levi, but maybe the mother was someone that's possible, and therefore the child is no longer Levi, just Yisrael. Possible is that he's just an ordinary Yisrael. No, so Kohen, the same thing. Just because the father is a Kohen, what does that prove? Maybe he married a Grusha. Grusha chalutz nasiv, and therefore the Kohen is a chol, doesn't deserve anything. So why aren't we worried both ways? If the Kohen, you're gonna say the second Kohen, we know his father Kohen. What do you say? Maybe he married a Grusha chalutz. If he married a Grusha chalutz, what's the status of his son? A chol. And what's the status of a chol? A Yisrael. Why do you get the Levi's aliyah? So right away we know he's not a Yisrael. So we don't find any way that a Kohen gets reduced to a Levi. It's either a Kohen or his children Yisrael. And the father's a Kohen. It must be that he's all right. It's the first guy that's a problem. By saying about Levi, if he did something wrong, the child is Yisrael. So then we don't know. Maybe the second guy also is a problem. Who are we worried about that will come to this conclusion? Ili Yeshvin, those people who are sitting in shul, we see that they finished the whole Kriyat Torah. We have 7 aliyahs, and they counted the Kohen, they counted the Levi, whatever it is. So what do you worry about? You say you cannot call 2 Kohenim, but we saw that counts as aliyah. If the first Kohen was possible, then L'chayda, he wasn't might see anybody with the Kriyat Torah. We need 7 more aliyahs. So everybody then knows that he was a kosher Kohen. What are we worried about? People walk out in the middle of davening, or middle of the Kriyat Torah, and they'll walk around saying, "Hey, we just saw something. We're no longer a Kohen." Okay, now that you got the Kohen and Levi, who's Rishi? Lahavid biyad, he didn't know. He went and asked Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. Amalei said, Achareyen Kohen b'Torah. This is how it works. This is the sequence of the order, the hierarchy by us, and goes as follows. Kohen Talmid Chacham Hamamunin Parnesim Al Tzibur. First thing is someone's a Talmid Chacham and he's in a position of authority, he's top, number one. Acharein Talmid Chacham Haruyilim Noisa Parnesim Al Tzibur. They're Talmid Chacham and they could have been in this position of authority, but they're not, either because Nechbal Akelim and they're very humble, or whatever reason it's. Acharein, third is Bnei Talmidei Chachamim Shavesein Memunim. Nepotism. It's a schus. They themselves are not Talmid Chacham. They're the children of a Talmid Chacham who is Avesein Memunim. They're the ones who get third. And it's a bach in Shechai Mishpat Ches where he talks about that nepotism. If the person is not qualified at all, you're even avedel sakil mishpat. But if the person is qualified, but it's not, people are better. He said, even though I don't like it, it's not midich sidis. but it's not Aveda at all. And next, we don't have the children of those who are capable of being. Rather, afterwards comes the head of the gathering and the groups, and then the Chol Adam. Then every person. Okay, we'll stop here. See you next Shabbos 7 o'clock.